This is a 2025 M1 Sport Technique bike. In this particular model, it's the M1 EN 8.0, the top of the line EN model, and EN is short for Enduro. This is the first time I've seen, or rather touched, an M1 bike, because I have seen them before. This German, isn't it, brand has been around for, well, since the beginning of EMTBs. I remember back in 2017, plus minus, looking at the M1 bikes. They were like this high-tech space age bikes, lots of curvy shapes and big covers, and of course the six-spoke carbon wheels, which gave them the high-tech look. Fortunately, I would say, they abandoned that look. Well, if you go the top of the line model, you still get those six-spoke carbon wheels, but most other models, they look more familiar what us mountain bikers are used to. M1 sort of revamped their lineup and their company for 2025. They've been using other motor brands like TQ up until now, but for 2025 it's the Bosch motor, Bosch CX Gen 5 and the Bosch SX motor, the lighter, milder one. They're selling these bikes. They're focusing on Europe, and they tell me you can go to the website and select the dealer you want the bike to be delivered. So it's click and collect. But the stores, there are quite a few, but they're only in Germany, Austria, and the northern part of Italy. So if you live elsewhere in Europe and you want this bike, then Manuel Cuthbert from M1 told me, go to your local dealer, ask them if they're willing to accept the bike. And then you go to the website, you order the bike, you instruct M1 which shop is going to receive the bike, and M1 and the shop will sort it out. And perhaps, who knows, they might become a future dealer. And the website is only in German as of now, but they're working on it, so it will change. So the M1 EN, it's one of 4 EMTB models. One is the top-of-the-line World Cup, quite steep angles, six-spoked wheels. You got the CC, 150 mil travel, front and rear. You got the AM, 160 front, 160 rear. And then this one, the EN Enduro, it's 170 front, 160 rear. What's interesting is that M1 is using the same frame on all models. And they alter the suspension travel, I assume the eye-to-eye length of the shock and the fork length, to set up the bike for different riding styles. And it doesn't seem they had to make much of a compromise to achieve this. This bike, the Enduro, it's got 445 chainstays, well, all of them have, and it's got a 64.4 degrees head angle. In my view, that's nice. I mean, for 170 mil travel Enduro bike, you might expect a slightly slacker front, but I think that's a nice compromise, 64.5, because the steering can remain quite light and it won't fold as easily when braking and turning hard. The C-tube angle, 74 degrees. That's the effective C-tube, and that's quite slack. I think the actual C-tube, it's not that slack, so you won't be pushed that far backwards on the saddle in the climbs. But of course you will notice it. Climbing on this bike, going uphill, the front end is relatively light. And what do? We lean a bit forwards of the bike, over the bike, move a bit forward on the saddle, and it will climb a lot of stuff. I mean, the Bosch Performance CX Gen 5 motor, it's nice and powerful going uphill, so it's a capable climber, but it's not a climbing specialist. Taking the bike on the flatter trails, it's surprisingly quite a nimble, inspiring, sort of poppy bike to ride, which might not really be what we expected from a 170 mil travel Enduro bike, but there are a couple of reasons for this. I'm not going to say the head angle is steep, it's not, but it's not among the slackest, so it's a moderate head angle. And the rear center chainstays, they're on the shorter side slightly. That means the wheelbase won't be long. I mean, 1268 millimeters for this size large. It's perfectly fine, but it's not exceptionally long. And combine that with the weight of this bike. 38 forks, piggyback shock, 22.6 kilos, including the crank brother pedals we put on the bike. That's surprisingly light, and of course it can be felt. There's a nice pop to the rear end, perhaps partly aided by the hard rubber compound Schwalbe Hansdampf tires. The speed grip, they're a bit on the hard side for our kind of riding these days. I mean, it's November here, like everywhere else, and the trails are very wet, moist, rocky, rooty trails. And everything is covered in leaves, so going fast, you can't really see if you're going to hit a root or a slab or whatever, which can be quite exciting with a hard rubber compound rear tire. If we were to ride this bike during summer, dry conditions, this would be a very fast rolling tire with decent grip. So choose the tires you need for your kind of riding. Anyway, this playful, light steering, light handling bike rolls quite fast. As you might expect, it's not the safest, most confidence-inspiring bike on the descents, despite the long travel. To me, this bike comes across as more of an all-mountain bike, properly beefed up with rugged suspension to be able to do some proper descending. It sort of makes sense. I mean, it's the same frame on all bikes. There are limits to how different these bikes can be. Still, I think it's a cool approach by M1. It's cool being able to select the battery you want. If you go 800 watt-hours battery, the shape of the down tube will alter slightly as the battery is a bit thicker, deeper. So you lose a bit of this sleek look of the down tube. There are a couple of advantages, a couple of reasons why you might consider going with the 800 battery, I think. I just said this bike doesn't feel like a proper enduro bike, and it shouldn't come as a surprise considering the low weight of like just over 22 kilos without pedals. What you could do is go with the 800 battery. It will increase the weight with almost a kilo, like 900 grams, and definitely go burlier tires, like the new Schwalbe radial tires. You could have like the Magic Mary in the soft compound at the back and an even burlier tire at the front. These tires have thicker sidewalls, which are more composed. You get more rebound damping in the wheels. So the bike will settle down with the more compliant, sort of slower, less poppy tires. And that adds even more weight. So perhaps you'll be able to increase the weight with like 1.5 kilos. And that will alter the riding characteristics of this bike, I assume. I really believe it will make the bike more settled, more stable and controlled going fast downhill over chatter. Looking closer at the specs, this 10,490 euros bike, it doesn't come with the wireless drivetrain, and that's okay. It comes with Shimano XDR. I'm always pleasantly surprised riding this bike. That's a nice, precise mechanical feel to the shifter. I like it. The brakes, Magura MT7, that's all the stopping power you need. Really nice dual caliper brakes, very powerful. The shock, Fox Performance 38 factory, yeah, that's nice. I sort of hoped they would go with the grip version. The Fit 4 version is a tad harsher, if I'm allowed to say that. I mean, it's still a Fox factory. It's a great fork. The Fox Float X shock, sure, it's not the burliest shock out there, but still, nice Fox factory shock. Wheels, the DT Swiss H1900, it's not a super light wheel set, so it makes the weight of this bike even more impressive. M1 doesn't integrate a display or a LED panel in the down tube, and I'm okay with that. I mean, there are fewer motor system components on the bike, and they don't have to make a hole in the top tube, so it's okay. Like with many Bosch controllers, like with the mini remote, the buttons for shifting assistance up and down often can be quite close to the dropper post. So we took the Pure N200 on this bike and tilted it properly forwards to avoid dropping the assistance when operating the dropper lever. It makes it very hard to see the speed of the bike, but yeah, we can live with that. It's a cool approach by M1. You decide, I mean, they got one frame and you decide how much travel you need. You decide how big of a battery you need, and you decide which motor you want. And these can be combined in pretty much all combinations. I mean, the CX motor can be had with a 400 compact tube battery, the new 600 watt-hours battery, or the 800 watt-hours battery. And it can be combined with the PowerTube 250 extender. The SX motor can be combined with a 400 watt-hours battery and the 600 watt-hours battery. So it makes for some unusual combinations. You could take the SX motor and the 600 watt-hours battery to have a reasonably lightweight bike. I'm sure you could keep it well below 21 kilos, perhaps even below 20. And have a super light bike with proper range. I mean, super light. The new Bosch CX SL bikes, they're hardly super light, but around 20 kilos is where they're at. And another approach, if you really like the super light bikes, but you want this new Bosch CX motor that is so silent while descending, while coasting, and even it's more silent than the SX while pedaling. You could just spec this bike as an SL bike with a 400 watt-hours battery, and you could go with the CX motor. It's a weight penalty of like 700 grams or something, but you would still be around 20-ish kilos. There is a downside to combining the 400 watt-hours battery and the CX motor though. The battery is a tad small. The current capacity, the way it's able to deliver power, is quite limited. I talked to Benedict Kelderman of Bosch, and we discussed it a bit. He told me, sure, you would have 100% power down to like, say, 80% state of charge. And then the BMS, the motor system, would start ramping down the power. But that could be okay, because you didn't really get the CX motor to be more powerful. You went with the CX motor to have a more silent bike. And if you add the 250 watts range extender, you could easily draw full power from the motor. And even if you have to step down the motor a bit, you would still be able to have a more generous motor to draw more power from the battery than the SX motor will, even though you won't get the full CX performance. So yeah, there are some pretty nice advantages with the M1 bike and the M1 approach. It's light, you have the option to customize the bike as you want, and you get a detachable battery. As far as I can tell, not that many bikes with a new Bosch CX motor does come with detachable batteries these days. And having this bike being this light with a detachable battery, that's quite remarkable. Unfortunately, I did not get the correct key for this bike, so I'm not able to take out the battery, but the new Bosch battery cover, it's quite easy to open. A nice fidlock mechanism. What's less convenient than the fidlock mechanism is the charge port, located almost inside the C-tube. So when attaching the range extender, that's quite easy, but it's not that easy removing it. So little space around this plug. Yeah, if you're cold, out for a long ride, cold, wet, it can be a bit difficult disconnecting it. So to sum it up, lightweight, detachable battery, it sort of sets it apart, I think. It's not that many bikes having this combination of attributes. So a fun, lively bike, more inspiring and lively than I would expect 170, 160 mil travel EMTB to be. That's it. Appreciate any likes and subscribes. Thanks for watching.